What is up, sports fans? What is up, Seattle Mariners fans? Welcome back to a new episode of Bleav In Mariners, the Mariners podcast where we can ride the high of first place while still pointing out the freaking potholes that the front office keeps ignoring and just kind of puts us in this situation as fans. Seattle's still clinging to the top of the AL West, but it's close. It's only a half a game lead over the Texas Rangers, coming off of a 1-5 freaking homestand. We can't sugarcoat this, fans. The team just, I don't think it's something that we didn't think could happen this year, but this team looks very fragile as of late. I mean, the last month and a half or so before that, I guess, yeah, just month really leading into it for the Mariners have been something really exciting, something that a lot of Mariners fans, the team playing above their station, basically 1 through 6 in the lineup. Rowdy Tellez actually, contributing with some pretty good hits in the clutch at times, home runs, and then Julio Rodriguez looking better at the plate. Jorge Polanco hitting at an MVP-like level. Like, there have been things going well, and those were things that we didn't expect. And I guess this kind of fragile look that the Mariners have had this last 1-5 homestand that they suffered through, definitely something that I think we were a little scared of seeing as Seattle Mariners fans. And their run differential obviously was a lot better a couple of weeks ago, something like in the near mid 30s, I think 34, 36 range. It was third best in the American League after that 1-5 homestand, down to just 11. So, yeah, you can't sugarcoat this last week. It's been awful. We can't just say, well, this is a slump. No, what this does is kind of maybe remind you of some of the problems of the past for the Seattle Mariners. But on top of that, something new that the Mariners are dealing with, the usually untouchable pitching staff. I mean, you had them basically carrying the team for the last 2-3 seasons. Unfortunately, you're starting to see cracks in that shield. I mean, thankfully, I will say really quickly before I go through these last few performances leading up to the loss for the Yankees, or excuse me, the loss for the Mariners against the Yankees to end the series 2-1 on Wednesday before their off day on Thursday. Logan Evans did have 6 runs taken off his ERA. That hit by Wyatt Langford to get that crazy inning going versus the Texas Rangers was actually turned into a fielder's choice, which means none of those runs that came after are actually earned for Logan Evans. So thank goodness he's actually looking at a much better ERA now. He suffered through a tough inning and made it hard on your team to get the win. I mean, yeah, earned runs or not, that doesn't change that. But if you look at the last trip through the Mariners rotation up until obviously just giving up a couple of runs to the Yankees on Wednesday, Bryan Woo, 6 innings pitched, 5 earned runs. Luis Castillo, 5 innings pitched, 5 earned runs. Logan Evans, 5 innings pitched, 3 earned runs. Probably the best start of the bunch, actually, speaking of the young kid. Bryce Miller, who just went on the IL, 5 innings pitched, 7 earned runs. Probably a reason he went on the IL, as we'll talk about here in just a second briefly. And then Emerson Hancock, once again, not looking great. 5 innings pitched, 7 earned runs. The Mariners are not looking good on the pitching side of things. Look at these numbers. This was put together by Marine Layer Podcast. Appreciate them. Just kind of gathering all these stats. Basically in the bottom third of almost every major category for starting pitching, which just isn't something that we've seen. Other than strikeout rate at a 21.8% clip, that's good for basically middle of the road, 15th in the league. Everything else is in the bottom of the cellar, the bottom third of the league. A 4.34 ERA, good for 23rd. A 117 ERA minus, good for 26th. Only pitching 203 innings so far, good for 23rd. Yeah, starters aren't going deep for the Mariners. An 8.6% base on ball rate, and that's good for 20th. A 1.31 whip, good for 21st. The starting pitching just looks bad. They're injured. Bryce Miller going down, the latest victim to the IL because of inflammation in his arm. Hopefully it's not going to be too long, but he just hasn't looked right. And you've kind of heard each of these pitchers going down so far this season: Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Bryce Miller. Now you've kind of heard from Mariners brass like, oh, these injuries really aren't that bad. They're not going to be that bad. They're going to be back very soon. I thought we initially heard that with George Kirby in spring training. We're now halfway through May, and thankfully now are just probably a start away. I think he's going to start one more time in Tacoma as a rehab start this weekend before we'll see him back in the rotation. But you heard pretty early that it wasn't going to be bad for him. Turned out to be bad. Apparently the injury to Logan Gilbert, not necessarily as bad as they thought. He's already throwing. Hopefully they'll get him back in the rotation sooner than they thought. But goodness gracious, man. It's like then once again you hear with Bryce Miller, oh, it's not that bad. This actual forearm inflammation or this arm inflammation that he's suffering, it's okay. It's not going to keep him out too long. It's like, well, maybe he needs to be out for like a month or something because he just hasn't looked right. And I don't know if getting him back in 2 weeks is actually a good thing, but just continuing to hear from the front office, like I get that they're trying to spin things. I get that they're trying to keep things positive for fans, but goodness gracious, just all Bryce Miller's down, but it ain't that bad. It just seems like deja vu all over again with the Mariners pitching staff. The bullpen overworked because of the injuries to the pitching staff. I mean, just think about it. I was thinking of this before I hit the record button for this episode of Bleav In Mariners. Your Mariners rotation right now, Luis Castillo, Emerson Hancock, Logan Evans, Brian Wu, and now the recent call-up to replace Bryce Miller in Jonathan Diaz. And he, in his couple of fill-in starts last year, did not look that great. Probably looked better in the bullpen. He can get you through 5 innings, but it's probably going to look a lot like the starts that you had leading up to that loss on Thursday against the Yankees with so many runs given up by everybody besides Logan Evans. It's just not going to be that clean of a start. You're not getting a quality start from Jonathan Diaz very often. And unfortunately, that, which has been the strong point for the Mariners, has basically fallen on their face in the last week. And now 1-5 record in the last homestand. And they're unfortunately with that pitching staff not really lifting anybody up right now. And with the hitters not able to come back from like a 6-run deficit or a 5-run deficit or a 4-run deficit as they were doing the week before late in games, man, it's just like that old bargain bin fetish I've been talking about with Jerry DiPoto. We come back to a 1-5 week, and it's just like this team is stitched together with blind hope. And once again, I've said it many times, hope in one hand, spit in the other, and see which one fills up first. I'm not saying like I'm totally ready to tank on these Mariners, but man, it's a long season, but 1-5 so suddenly after sustained success for a month plus, basically the best team in the league coming out of April, all of baseball's talking about you. And unfortunately, you're not actually putting out a major league quality team out there. And maybe that's fooling a couple of people. Just the numbers are early on. But overall, once you get down to the nitty gritty of it, you're not going to be able to do things like maybe a New York Yankees team because they are deeper. They've got more professional hitters. This bargain bin hope that the Mariners, with this ragtag group of young guys and this homegrown group of talent, I just don't think it's going to get it done. And I feel like that 1-5 week that we just suffered through is representative of that. And unfortunately, whether it's ownership, whether it's the front office, you're essentially forced into putting out a lineup that's really only decent major league hitters 1 through 6. 7 through 9, it's basically replacement players, rookie call-ups, like Donovan Solano not hitting, Mitch Garver, basically they're trying to get anything out of him, squeeze the last drops of lemon juice out of that lemon for that $12.5 million salary. There's just so many holes this team has to fill, even when Victor Robles and Luke Raley get back. And one of those holes, actually, that we thought might have been filled earlier in the season, possibly looks like it's getting bigger than ever, bringing us to the third baseman for the Seattle Mariners. And that would be the main topic of this podcast. One top prospect, Ben Williamson. I'll tell you what, getting called up earlier in the season as somebody that in spring training we kind of looked at and kind of knew, hey, he's probably going to be on the Seattle roster at some point this season. And I would say because of the injuries to one Ryan Bliss and Jorge Polanco, one especially to Jorge Polanco that we really didn't think that we'd have to deal with as Mariners fans. Unfortunately, the third baseman, hey, he's been hitting his booty off, but he's had to play DH, which forced the Mariners to call top prospect Ben Williamson up. And it turned into something that Mariners fans really thought could be a big one going forward. Like I've been saying, at least for the first couple weeks of his career, like, is this a young Kyle Seager? Are we seeing something again after like the Mariners, 15 years after they called Kyle Seager up with Dustin Ackley, missed on Dustin Ackley, but he didn't, Kyle Seager he didn't go back down to the minors again and ended up being the Mariners' third baseman for a decade. Have they found something again like that in Ben Williamson? Kyle Seager was kind of light hitting to start his career as far as the power numbers went, figured it out, as he got deeper into his major league career, put a couple of 30-plus home run seasons up and played Gold Glove third base at the hot corner. And I think a lot of Mariners fans were with me in thinking, okay, you know what? We might have something here. But what looked like a breakout moment for top prospect Ben Williamson has turned into something pretty familiar for us Mariners fans. A long cold streak and a lot of red flags. So kind of makes the question linger for all of us. Did the team rush him up too soon? Or should the team wait through these growing pains? Because this is kind of what baseball is like. Well, 1 month ago, Ben Williamson, a total beacon of hope, a top prospect, like I've said, called up for the Mariners to fix their black hole at third base. The glove, as we saw in spring training, was an absolute given. Started slapping singles, hit that home run, hit 310 out of the gate. And for a brief second, we thought, even after all these questions that have been brought up in the offseason, as I said early in the episode of Bleav In Mariners, maybe Jerry Dipoto actually nailed one. But now, yeah, that sugar rush is wearing off fast. Williamson in a pretty bad slump. I mean, to start the season, 45 plate appearances, 301 batting average, 429 slugging, only an 18% K rate. He was hitting the ball hard 44% of the time, had a 131 WRC plus. But, that light hitting, unfortunately, it's not necessarily, that no power approach, not necessarily the best approach in Major League Baseball, not just really as like a third baseman, but as any hitter. You've got to be able to get some pop on the ball. It's why people, we're excited to see a guy like Jacob Wilson hitting right now for the Oakland Athletics, but a lot of people are asking if that's a sustainable approach in Major League Baseball, and if a player, without trying to hit the ball over anybody's heads, because you don't really get an out when you hit a home run, right? And when you hit the ball into the outfield, even as like a normal base hit, like say the ball gets hit a little bit harder or it gets hit right at somebody, like it's just left up to fate when you're a contact hitter like this, as opposed to being a power hitter that can hit it over the wall 30 to 40 times a season. You know what you're getting out of that guy. You don't know quite what you're getting maybe out of a Jacob Wilson. It's worked out for him so far. But, and you don't know what you're getting out of a Ben Williamson, but did I say Jacob Williamson? I did. I meant Jacob Wilson, strike that, reverse it, or Ben Williamson. But at the start of his career, it looked like you were getting a lot out of him. But unfortunately, yeah, you only saw 3 walks in that first 45 plate appearance stretch. Since then, he has had 0 walks, and his Ks have gone up. 93 total plate appearances, 3 walks and 25 strikeouts. That walk to K ratio among the 10 worst in Major League Baseball for any hitter with 90-plus plate appearances. He's just not really disciplined at the plate either, which I get it. He's a young kid, but we've seen, 24, 25-year-olds come up and actually show plate discipline. It's just kind of an ownership of the strike zone. That doesn't necessarily change from AAA to Major League Baseball, and he doesn't seem like he's actually able to stop himself from chasing pitches outside of the zone. Looking at the stats, at 38.2% clip, well above the league average of chasing pitches outside at about 28%. And after, I mean, we talk about baseball. I think I mentioned it in the last episode of Bleav In Mariners or a couple episodes ago. We talk about baseball being a game of adjustments, and you saw a lot of pitchers trying to challenge Ben Williamson. Young kid. It's like, all right, let's throw him a fastball. Let's see what he can do. I'm not going to think too hard about this. But after he came out hitting in those first 45 plate appearances over 300, pitchers adjusted, stopped throwing him easy pitches. That four-seam fastball usage dropped from 33% down to 27% after his first 11 games. So essentially, the league adjusted to Ben Williamson, and he is failing the adjustment test, trying to adjust back to these pitchers. So unfortunately now, in the last 52 plate appearances after that hot start, hitting just a .173, and his slugging percentage in that time only .212. His overall slugging percentage for the season is at .309. In his 52 plate appearances since 428, a 33% K rate and only 84 mile per hour average exit velocity. And check this out, a 7 WRC plus. He is literally 93% worse than the average hitter in Major League Baseball since April 28th. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Mariners fans. What the hell do they do? It's really fun to watch Ben Williamson dunk singles out into center field, but if he's hitting his ground balls like he is at such a high clip, 47.8%, much higher than average for any MLB third baseman. Yeah, that doesn't really translate to major league success. And then you look at, well, okay, if he can't hit so well, if he's going to be like a below average hitter, and I mean, if you don't walk at all, you're going to be more than a below average hitter. And I think you're going to get exposed. And it seems like that's what's happening, but you get exposed quickly. And it does seem like, what has this been, like a 2.5 week turnaround for Ben Williamson, unfortunately going the other way down the mountain. And people, because of that, saying that he needs to get sent down. But, a lot of people defending him still throughout this really crappy couple of weeks because his defense looks Gold Glove worthy. He obviously, it's his calling card. He showed it off in spring training, has made some really good plays at the hot corner here with the Mariners this season. But even there, he is still at a -1 outs above average on the year. So he is now generating still, obviously a small sample size, but a one less out than the average third baseman a year. And apparently that's because he specifically struggles with plays coming in and to his right. So even though it looks like he's actually pulling those with the glove and getting the ball to first, he's got a great arm. His coverage to the right actually isn't that good. And I think we've all seen, at least I remember one a week ago, a ball bouncing right off the glove on something that, I mean, it was a good play, a good stop. I think he saved a run. But you look at a true major league third baseman, and they're most likely going to make that play. You look at like a Manny Machado in his day. You look at a Nolan Arenado, Gold Glover, Kyle Seager would have made that play. Like, that's a high bar to set, y'all. But it's not just raw ability that the Mariners need at third base. They need to get it done, and they need to get it done now. And the house of cards that this team is built on, you can't really afford time for these prospects to develop. You hear, hey, this glove is major league ready. That's not a major league ready glove. And if that goes along with a 177 batting average instead of a 300 batting average, you're getting sent back down quick. So if that happens, if Ben Williamson has to go, then who's the guy in Seattle? Who do they go to? I mean, he is still a top prospect, only 24. It's like 100 plate appearance sample, but I'm not sure that the Mariners can wait too much longer to do something. And frankly, with the likes of like Donovan Solano taking at bats up on the roster and Mitch Garver still not really producing many of his at bats or with many of his at bats, you can't just continue to put 3 guys out there every single night that are going to be a black hole in the offensive lineup. 1 through 9 has to have some sort of vibe. JP Crawford came in, ending up having to get scratched against New York because of, I think, shoulder soreness is what Dan Wilson said. So even he, thinking that he's going to show up to the ballpark, know who he has available to him, he's got to change it up at the last second. And unfortunately, with that, and with the, I would say, lackluster offseason level of talent that the Mariners acquired, you just can't afford to develop these guys, through 300 or 400 plate appearances this year in Major League Baseball. If they don't show it in a couple hundred, you got to move on. You got to send him back down. So what do you do if maybe you give him 50 plate appearances more, 100 plate appearances more, and he doesn't hit? What do you do if the Mariners want to send him right now because he hasn't hit? If Williams is not the guy, who is it? I mean, you can throw, it's kind of been the same thing at second base. You can do that at third too, but obviously one position that you kind of thought had solved, you had solved at third base, unfortunately now is a rotating door again. You can move Dylan Moore, Leo Rivas, Miles Mastroboni over there. You can basically do like a second, third base platoon, but essentially you're giving way more at bats to a guy like Miles Mastroboni than you had planned in the offseason. Dylan Moore, looking like a really good offensive player. I don't mind starting him every day, whether it be second, third, or right field. He actually looks like a more consistent hitter than he ever has in his career. But this bargain bin mentality, that Jerry DiPoto thought process, my ideas are better than yours. Didn't need to add anyone besides Solano in the offseason. I mean, it's just kind of forcing you into that option of more Rivas and Mastroboni. A lot of Mariners fans, if you look down in the minors again, you say, let's call up another prospect. Why don't you go with Cole Young? He has absolutely been raking in the last week or so. He is the 43rd ranked prospect in all of MLB. Hit a 441-foot homer on Thursday night for the Tacoma Rainiers, hitting 425 with a 521 on base percentage over his last 11 games. Was the PCL Hitter of the Week for his work and could be contending for the award again this week, according to a couple of news outlets. But overall for the season, hitting 240 with a 357 on-base percentage. But of course, that hot streak in the last week and a half or so, making Mariners fans clamor to see him. That is an option. You could throw him in at second, and essentially then third base becomes the platoon with Moore and Rivas and Mastroboni. I don't know, calling Jorge Polanco, is that still an option? Probably not. I mean, I thought it was laughable in the first place that the Mariners even tried to put him at third base. I don't think you can move a guy that's played second his entire career over to third. That throw is obviously much harder. I love how they talked about his range and how it would be easier for Polanco after knee surgery to move to the right, but they never discussed anything about his throwing arm. They never even brought that up because, like, yeah, most likely that's going to be a problem. I have not seen many career second basemen transition over the third base, especially after injuries later in their career. It just doesn't happen much, if ever, in baseball. So I don't think that's the thing. I think he started last there like April 4th. So the Mariners, and he started at second, frankly, since then, I think once or twice, and been in as a defensive replacement, at least at second as well. So doesn't seem like Danny Wilson's looking at that as an option. Maybe they can go trade for like an aging Nolan Arenado or something like that. There's going to be options on the trade market, and I know that Jerry Dipoto has actually shown the willingness to go make those deals. We'll just see what the asking price is, right? People are very high on Cole Young. People are high on Colt Emerson. People are high on Harry Ford. He's actually been hitting some home runs lately in AAA Tacoma, showing some of that power that was maybe lacking, getting him to the major leagues. But there are other prospects as well. If you're a Mariners fan, would you want to give up Luzardo Montes for a major league third baseman right now? I think that's a question that Jerry Dipoto is going to have to ask. What do you say about this, Mariners fans? Do you think Ben Williamson is just a few tweaks away from getting right, or should Seattle go back to the minors or on the trade market to explore another option before this keeps costing Seattle real games? They hold a half a game lead in the AL West over the Texas Rangers right now, literally just 2 games over the Athletics. You've got the Astros clinging to the heels of the Texas Rangers as well. And yeah, pretty standard as far as what we thought would happen, or at least Fangraphs too, what they thought would happen with the AL West for this season. 4 teams within a 2-game stretch of each other. And because of that, I just don't think the Mariners can afford to waste at-bats on either Donovan Solano or a struggling Ben Williamson. But they also don't have an easy answer either. All right, Mariners fans, it's been a pretty long one. Going to wrap it up. Appreciate everybody tuning in for this episode of Bleav in Mariners. The Mariners facing off against the Padres this weekend. A long 9-game road trip coming up, and going to be very, very imperative over these next 9 games for, I would say, the Mariners to at least go 500 so they can stay in the hunt. If they have another, 1-5 type of stand on the road like they did at home, if it's like a 2-7 type of deal, even like a 3-6, I don't think that's going to keep you in first in the AL West. You need to go at least 4-5 or 5-4. Obviously 6-3 would be great, but the Mariners coming up with a pretty big stretch, 9-game road trip before coming back to face the Washington Nationals at home after Memorial Day. Appreciate everybody tuning in to this episode of Bleav in Mariners. Make sure you like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you like more Mariners content, and on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, would really appreciate all those subscriptions, 5-star ratings. You can just add it to your downloads, and if you hate it, you can take it right off. It's all good. I appreciate it, but I do say, hey, give me a week, and then if you don't like me, give me another week. A lot of Mariners podcasts out there, but just trying to break through the noise here. And as a Portland, Oregon-based Mariners fan, it's nice to throw some Mariners talk in from this part of the PNW. Appreciate everybody listening, and hopefully next time you tune in, we'll be talking about a Mariners sweep of the Padres. All right, Mariners fans, keep those tridents up. Stay safe out there. See you soon.